We ready to go? Okay. We are delighted to have Michaela Ball. Here's our presenter today for stepping into AAC. Some interesting things about her. She used to work in film production and she loves Indian food.
Thank you so much. So I'm really excited to be here today to share this project. It has been a couple years in the making, and I was a part of a team of 4, 5, 6 people. We kind of floated between 4 and 6 over the past couple years to put it together. So, uh-oh. Now, here we go. Okay. So stepping into AAC is a 20-week program originally created for parents. It's accessible, it's free, it's all housed online through Google and YouTube. And if you wanted to take quick photos, but this should also be in your handout, these 2 QR codes will get you to the project. I do recommend probably going through this website, Practical AAC, over the Angelman Syndrome Foundation. But, so, what exactly is this? It's a project that was put together originally. Tabby Jones-Wolleber, Carol Zingari, and Rachel Langley, who's not posted on here. They came up with this idea that parents needed more support. They needed tools and training, and how do you get that to them when they don't even necessarily have SLPs that are supporting them, or school districts, or all these other professionals? So how can they learn and support their children? So this idea came from Carol, Tabby, Erin Sheldon also participated, and Rachel Langley helped put this together. I'm going to skip this slide. So Rachel Langley, she wasn't pictured because when we originally gave this presentation at ATIA, she was associated with assistive wear, so she couldn't help us participate. But we also had other contributing SLPs, Krista Hadid Larson, Marlene Cummings, and you'll see them in the videos. And then Erin Sheldon, also master's in education and really huge advocate for literacy in AAC. So we couldn't have done this project or put it together without the support of the Angelman Syndrome Foundation. They helped guide this project and help fund this project. They allowed us to interact with their community of families to get a large portion of our content that helped. You'll see in the videos and the quotes in the newsletters that come from parents, making this, with the ultimate goal, more accessible for parents of AAC learners. It was created to be an on-ramp for those families who maybe had not yet looked at robust language for their child, or for those families who tried and stopped and ran into barriers. It was created to provide an on-ramp to try to keep going with it. Because it's all housed online, it's accessible. The goal was to make it flexible for families. Families can follow the originally intended timeline, but they can also do it at their own pace or pick and choose. And it was also created to help strengthen and build teams and provide parents with the tools they may possibly need to advocate for their child when working with other professionals. So I love it when Carol and Gary will say, "Challenge accepted." So we reached out through the Angelman Syndrome Foundation, reached out to their parents. We got 6 parents who were willing to be interviewed, as well as a large number of parents who contributed photos and video of their children. Age ranges about 18, 24 months, all the way to 22. So wide variety of representation here. And we also reached out to several AAC companies. And so we do represent, or we have in our videos and our print materials, representation of assistive wear, PRC, Project Core, Tobii Dynavox. And some of our visual materials to help support the project came from Drawn to AAC and Lesson Picks. So the structure, this idea of 100 days of AAC is what defined the structure of this project. It formulates into 5 days, 5 days a week of quick and interactive hands-on activities with 2 to 5 short videos each week and a weekly new AAC newsletter and handouts. And then all this over 20 weeks. I joke and say it's like a college course. It provides materials in 3 tracks of kind of digestible format, whether it's video, print material, reading more newslettery type stuff. But it also provides parents and families tools to select and create communication tools for them to use with their children. So it does include this kind of pathway material so that parents can go, oh, okay, so if I do this, then I can move on to this next thing of, oh, this might be my next step. So in that digestible material, those 3 ways, or 3, we referred to them as tiers of material. The very first thing we provide is a set of action steps. They are 5 days of weekly activities that highlight core words and activities that can go with those core words. That next tier 2 is, it's labeled signposts. Those are the set of videos that go with that week's material. And then the third one is a travel log. That's the newsletter, which highlights some more ideas and topics within that week. So those are the 3 pillars or tracks that you can, they're not really tracks, they're tiers of information or formats of information. But that's spread over 20 weeks. So that first week through that 5th week, it's all foundational knowledge and concepts that are introduced. So it's very that primer to here's what AAC is, here is why we choose robust vocabulary, here's how we facilitate language, those kind of topics that really help inform the rest of what parents can do and what we may do as professionals. Weeks 6 to 8 are really unique, and the videos are color coded differently so you can see it right away. They are considerations for customizing AAC. It's all about access. How does your child access their communication system? It does talk about vision, motor, attending, and that alternate access piece in those weeks. Weeks 9 through 12 is where the content dives deeper into AAC, and we begin to introduce models, video models of what it may look like to model language in certain activities. Then weeks 13, 14, reading with AAC, that literacy piece. 15 to 17, AAC in everyday life. What does it look like? What do you do when you have those messy activities? And then those last weeks discuss AAC out in the community, building AAC, and planning forward to allow a family and their AAC learner a way to interact with their community. So that's the basic structure of what this project is. Now here's an example of our action steps. It has a weekly heading, some information, some intro as to what is happening this week, what do you need to know, and then the 5 days of activities with links to the accompanying videos and newsletter. So it also provides additional materials like customizing your board, adding those fringe words, and how to do that. It provides access to the company's, the language company's websites where you can download their PDFs for free, just to give parents access, immediate access to materials that already exist. And then that way parents can start to create their own board with that additional fringe vocabulary or personal vocabulary. So signposts. Now, this is where I joined the project. I wasn't the mastermind behind all this, but I do have that film background. So I was brought on to help produce these videos and put them together. And so we decided that for longevity's sake, YouTube was a great format. It's also accessible, and every child pretty much knows what they can find on YouTube. So we created playlists where each week has its own playlist. In addition, we grouped content together to create additional playlists. So if you're not looking for the whole program, but you're looking for specific topics, maybe it's foundational, maybe it's just that model of what does modeling look like, those are all individual playlists. These videos, we very consciously made sure to keep them within 12 minutes. So some of our longer ones run that long, some are as short as 2.5 minutes, but that way they can be proportionally bite-sized for families. There are 64 videos, but 30 of them have companion handouts that talk about the technique that was discussed in that video. And those actually I have found from district SLPs have been one of the most useful tools that they have shared with parents. Yes, that's our intro right there. You will hear my voice on these too. But so the project's extensive where you can use it, and you can use it in the way you need to.
Sorry, I'm an OT. I don't know AAC real. Is it with cough drop? Can it be applied to a variety? Are you getting there? Did I already miss it?
No, fantastic question. Is it system agnostic? Yes, because it can be applied to cough drop. It can be applied to basically any robust language system, as well as those core boards for those families who maybe aren't there yet. The videos that demonstrate how to model, we'll discuss that in a moment, but they do range all different language products or language systems. So one of my favorite parts about these videos is the parent interview piece. We were able to put parent interviews in I think almost every single video. And that has also, in addition to those handouts, have been one of those tools that I have been able to use to help shift the minds of parents and teachers, to shift their mindset. So this just a few screenshots. We tried very carefully to keep everything color-coded together so that both while we're presenting information, parents could easily search it because it's so massive. Same with professionals. I keep saying parents. I want you to know any professional can use this as well for free. It is a tool that is meant to be used to give information to others. So it is not only limited to parents. But we use a variety of content. We have those interviews. We also do use a lot of animation to visually support the content that we are trying to, that idea, that topic, or that skill that we're trying to get across to parents. So our videos have a main structure. There is an introduction. They will often have visual explainers, which are those animations and graphics. They will include parent interviews and then either still images or video footage of their children to highlight that skill that we're trying to teach. And then in week 9, we put it together and model the language with what we call our language walkthroughs. what that may look like, we take an activity, for example, the park or playground, and we break it into a beginning, middle, and end. So this does two things. That allows us to model what modeling may look like on a variety of systems and a variety between high tech and no tech. But it also provides a framework for the viewer, the parents, other professionals, and how to talk about an activity before, during the activity, what you can model during the activity, and what to talk about after the activity. So at the beginning, when we do these language walkthroughs, we model on a core board. It does change. It's not all, this is a Proloquo to go. We do use LAMP. We do use Proloquo to go, and there is a video where it's just paper core boards. Then in that middle section, when we discuss what you could talk about in the middle while during that activity, we model how someone might go from using that core board provided by that language company to flipping to their customized core board for their language. And then in that ending piece, when we're discussing after an activity or the end of an activity, that's when we do, and the videos model how to do it on a speech generating device. So we're hitting multiple tech modalities as well as different language systems. Thus to hopefully answer that question of it doesn't necessarily just align with one language system. It can apply to all. I do have to say we did not work with Cough Drop. So Cough Drop isn't represented, but it doesn't mean it can't be applied. So here, if you can get to our YouTube channel through those QR codes, which also provide access to all the other materials. And I will put those up again at the end. But if you want to go straight to YouTube, we have a dedicated channel, Stepping Into AAC, and it has those weekly playlists and those topical playlists. Yes. Excellent. So that is a fantastic question. The question was, is this only presented in English? Currently, yes. However, we are working with the Angelman Syndrome Foundation and other outside parties to move forward with translation because that's been the #1 request, to be honest. So additionally, with the videos and the different tiers of material, there are just additional resources, such as those customization boards that parents can use to create their own personal vocabulary, as well as paper materials that parents can use to advocate for their needs of their child with other professionals like school districts. So that is all on the website. That third track are our weekly newsletters, and they follow the same format as the weekly breakdown, where there's those first 5 weeks, so the first 5 newsletters are really setting the foundation for those skills, so that later on, by week 20, those conversations are much more in depth about what we're using, why we're doing this for our learner, and what that can look like. And within each topic, out in the community, during other activities that are traditionally maybe harder to have a speech generating device with. The videos, these are what the video handouts look like. They provide a lot of information, and they are really good single page handouts, and they are standalone, but they do well with the videos. So, and there are 30 of them, so about half the videos have handouts that accompany them. So, it's a lot of content. Feel free to peruse the website as you would like and pick and choose. Same with YouTube. But we did provide weekly bundles so that you can go, okay, I'm in week 1. This is what we're going to cover, and it's already formulated for you. They will look like this, where, like, for example, week 2, what does success look like? That first QR code is that action step for the week. Then the signpost, those videos. This is a great example of a week that has 5 videos, and then that newsletter to go with. And you can use that as a tool to say, hey, parents, here's the whole package, or you can provide them options for just the single pages. So that's stepping into AAC, that full, almost college course like amount of content. So how can we use this? I think is probably the biggest question, because sure, it's got a lot of information, but how can I use it? I'm going to talk about early intervention, and I'm going to talk about how you can use it in schools. You can also use it in any other setting that you may think of. It truly is a tool to help build the capacity of families, but also those around us, so that we are all supporting our AAC learners. So let's think about the target audience. In early intervention, that's families and caregivers. So often when I did earlier intervention through a private practice, I would see families in homes. That's not always the case, but I do know for a fact every family wants what's best for their child, right? So how can we help give them the tools? There are a few challenges that can come up with early intervention. Often in early intervention, it's that first time parents are hearing about AAC. They have high needs that may interfere with consistency. AAC is not intuitive. That's going to go for every possible setting. But there's also a barrier of possible acceptance for the need of AAC and the acceptance of disability. So you might come across barriers in this setting in EI when working with families in that birth to 3 range that you may not encounter in the school setting. All right, so benefits. The great thing about stepping into AAC is it's multimodal. It's universal design for learning. I love that. It has an extensive range and depth. So if you have a family and you think just that foundational knowledge weeks 1 through 5 is where you need to just be, just to build that understanding about language development and how to foster that is okay. That's why that range and depth and topic can be very flexible. The way stepping into AAC is created is that when you go in order, everything builds upon itself so that you can increase those skills. And it's always free and available. And it is accessible to parents without you being the, what do I want to call it? The gatekeeper. So stepping into AAC resources will allow you to tailor the exploration and the follow-up and make it individual for each family. What you provide, what the pace is. Okay, hey, today we're just going to talk about the action steps. And then later this week, do you mind maybe viewing this one video for those families who you might need to move a little slower. You can also use it as needed as a support tool. So some considerations for delivery. You can do it in person with your family. You can do it in real time with them, discuss it, model it with their child. And that may include reviewing the materials, practicing together, and then having the family see how you model language to benefit from that and being able to ask questions immediately. And that's totally different than providing it as a virtual tool. You might use it as supplemental material for a family to say, hey, I know we talked about this and modeling this. Here's this great handout and this great video. You might want to check this out before the next time we get back together. And let me know if you have any questions or thoughts. So it can be used in quite a variety of settings. You can also, because the materials are online, you can present it like this and play it over Zoom for those virtual sessions and all of that possible format delivery. You can, like I mentioned, the asynchronous version where you can use it as an additional tool. And you can also use it for a flipped learning format where the family, you provide the material before your session. And it can be that, that stepping stone into, hey, this is what we're going to do and what we're going to talk about. So that maybe they have a little bit more introduction to what you're going to address that session and already have questions prepared as to, oh, I saw that this, let's take the language development video, for example. I learned, parents may say, I learned that I need to be modeling more language than my child is portraying, and then you can really go into depth about why that is and how and when that's appropriate, and maybe when it's not. But you can open that conversation using Stepping Into AAC as that tool. So example implementation plans. If you were to do it sequentially, you might have a family that's hungry for information as to how to support their child and kind of assess where they're at, see what may be of benefit, and be ready to share the stories and ask questions and follow up with follow through. So the challenge, though, is that it's still not intuitive, and a busy household may make that difficult to do. So if a family is hungry for that information, one thing you could do is do that flipped learning format. Or do it in person with them, but providing that opportunity to pause the video or pull out the handout, read it, and discuss. And then, of course, the asynchronous option is always a great one. Let's take family number 2. They're eager to learn and they benefit from a very specific guidance to get started. So they're not necessarily the family where you can go, let's talk about AAC and start general and work in. You might have to address one specific skill, topic, daily routine, whatever it may be, to get them thinking about the larger concepts. They may also be overwhelmed with managing their child therapies work, so that the whole balance. And they may be more organized or organized in a unique way where they send themselves texts or emails, and they're tech savvy where they're using technology to help them manage their day. So what could you do? Once again, the challenge with all families, AAC is non-intuitive. They may have limited initial AAC information and knowledge, and they may not have those family resources where they are already learning about AAC. So you could set up a virtual session, view selected videos together and discuss. Maybe start with those language walkthroughs, which is week 9 and later, but start with those and then use those as a way to open up the door to talk about specific skills that you can work on and model through AAC. You could meet in person, share a weekly bundle, complete 1 to 2 action steps, and then help the family plan for doing those action steps. So bring out that action step paper in one of those early weeks and say, okay, here's some of the vocabulary that you can model. Here are the activities or possible activities. What would best align with what you have going on in your life? And then work from there on how to do that and then build that skill. Asynchronous, you could do a text check-in or an email check-in halfway through the week and ask about something specific, an article, an AAC video, to give that family a sense of, I've completed one piece of that progression. And that may help them feel like they've gotten something accomplished in a way that maybe they wouldn't have if they just talked about it. You could also go through you could go through it in a sequential format, share that weekly bundle and let them work through it, especially if they are tech savvy and they set up their own reminders and set it all up. Or you could go through it in a topical format, those language walkthroughs, maybe pick a skill or something that is difficult for the family, start with those videos, for example, attention, or knowing when your learner has made progress, when it may not look like they've made progress. So, and with families, may always be useful to have them make a mini goal. What would they like to accomplish this week or this 2 weeks? And then using that to inform what materials from stepping into AAC you might use or have as like in your back pocket to go, okay, now let's talk about this. So with early intervention moving forward, consider the challenges of your family. What are they facing? What are their strengths and weaknesses to help them manage their learning? Identify a long-term approach to stepping into AAC that is going to be helpful for that family, whether it's sequential, topical, both, or just using it to highlight specific skill sets. And considering topics that are particularly relevant, especially for those families that are more overwhelmed, and selecting how you are going to provide your additional element to the service you're already providing the family. So any thoughts, any questions on stepping into AAC in early intervention before I move on to schools? Okay. So a big chunk of my experience is AAC in schools. Target audience, not the parent. This is where this can be a really cool tool. Our target audience really truly is school staff and IEP teams. And my district is just at a point where they're starting to think about parent trainings on top of this, but specifically school staff and IEP teams. So target audience, those IEP team members, teachers, professionals, additional staff in the room, specifically those longer term subs or long-term subs who are there, but they're not totally there the entire school year. Also your administrators, your related service providers, and any additional school support staff. That could be the lunchroom support staff or the bus attendant. So anyone who interacts with that child. Some of the challenges we face. There's a lot of these. So we often come across time and access to tools. That's a large one. Time often impacts our ability to train out on these skill sets that we expect our teams to have with these students who use AAC to support their communication. Acceptance of AAC as an appropriate tool with whether it should be used or whether it can be used in a variety of ways, such as to support that receptive communication. And a lot of that isn't necessarily, even though we know it's best practice, isn't necessarily understood as best practice by all. So, and on top of that, AAC is not intuitive. So you couple those all together and there's a lot of barriers that schools face. So the benefits of stepping into AAC in schools, It can save time, it can save money, and it can save energy. It's prepared content. There's no cost barrier. It's easy to build a personalized training, and you can use it to create both these micro PDs as well as year-long, 2-year-long trainings. Because of how much content it has and the variety of formats it provides it in, it does support more of a universal design for learning. And then some considerations for the service delivery options. For teams that need very specific skill acquisition in how they interact and help facilitate an AAC learner's communication, you can do in-person or virtual sessions, but you can use stepping into AAC by picking and choosing to target specific skills. For situations where you're limited on time and coordination, maybe you have buildings where not all of the IEP team members or related service providers are available at one time. So you have to coordinate so that they all get the same information, but not in the same place. You could use that flipped learning model or an asynchronous model to help build that staff's capacity with those very specific, either specific skills or more long-term AAC. So what could this look like? For an IEP team, it would be identifying the key learning needs of the team. Could look like a 30-minute session. These are just suggestions. Every school and situation is different, but you could plan for a 30-minute session, watch 2 to 3 videos and discuss with the team, review the action steps, and then create an implementation plan for that student or for multiple students within that that have that same IEP team. You could also utilize those printed guides and consider including paraprofessionals. I'm going to say highly consider including your paraprofessionals because they're often the ones who are interacting the most with those students. And repeat that learning session as needed. So just one example. For a building-wide training, you could communicate with the admin and set up a school-wide implementation, as well as a way to keep revisiting these topics so that you are increasing that communicative environment for more students in the building. I came from a self-contained school, so we use this a lot. To help build the capacity of the entire school, to help save us time instead of doing those individual IEP team support meetings. So, and then in that same breath, you can get possibly more questions answered, more skills taught with that asynchronous or flipped model. You could also use a microlearning concept where you're either using Canvas or Blackboard or any learning management system that your staff uses and create a professional development that way. Yeah. Additionally, those handouts, they make great one-pagers for water cooler learning. If there's areas where staff tends to congregate, you can put those up there and go, okay, this is a skill that I have not seen utilized as well in the classrooms, and I'd like to see more of it. Maybe people just don't understand it or need another format in how to digest that material. I'll just post up the PDF. The handouts that are incorporated or associated with the videos, those are great for that. You could also use this material as digital sharing. One of the schools I worked at, the principal would include pieces of this in her monthly newsletter. So that means it would go out to staff, but it would also go out to parents. So some example implementation plans. let's say there's a team that has a preschool age student who just started AAC, and the team hasn't really had that experience yet. So they need some support. My goal as a related service provider or teacher specialist is to help them understand their role in teaching about and using of AAC with that student and providing a language rich environment that includes symbolic language. So what that would possibly look like is I would coordinate with the team to get them together so we could meet and have them identify maybe specific topics. Because they're new to AAC, I might say, we really should start with this information first, and then let's talk about some of those questions, and that would inform, okay, we need to talk more about language development, or, oh, let's talk about how we can utilize this in wet and messy environments. Really depends upon the team and where the direction they go. And then selecting a service delivery model for me for this training of the team. Another example, same situation, but I could use print and share handout 2-4. We could watch the video and discuss, and also print and utilize those action steps from week 2 because it provides language and those activities to use right away. And then I could possibly follow up with an email saying, hey guys, thanks for meeting. When you have time, check out this video about how to navigate AAC. So just following up with more content. In a different situation, if I have a school that has a high number of AAC users, and all the staff building wide need that increased awareness, how would I go about that? My goal would be to create periodic but low pressure learning opportunities with possibly asynchronous reminders. And that could be coordinating with admin to determine how often I could provide some sort of PD, professional development, and the duration. Maybe it's once a month for 15 minutes during our staff meeting, building staff meeting, or maybe it's once every other month for an hour. I develop a calendar in coordination, possibly with other assistive technology members who may also be working in the building. I would also recommend doing that with your SLPs, your OTs, your PTs, depending on your student population and what your needs are. And then I would pick kind of a window of, okay, I want to address this information. So I may not need the foundational weeks 1 through 5 from the project, but I may benefit from week 6 through 20 to address more specific information because they already have that foundation, and we just need to increase our skill set as a whole building. And then, skip that. So what that could look like, one example, 30 minutes every 6 weeks. You can incentivize that asynchronous or flipped aspect to get more training and utilize different print materials. I do find that with school teams, it's really important for them to have a question and answer discussion portion so that they can work through some of the barriers that they are experiencing. And then asynchronous follow-up, as always. So this example is probably the one I've encountered the most as being a barrier, is that new staff that turnover rate so high that we may have trained twice in the year, and we have a third to a quarter of our staff that has not received the training. So how do we keep them up to date with expectations and giving them the information so they understand why we're asking them to do things in a certain way in the classroom? So my goal is how to get new staff up to speed quickly. So that would take coordinating with administrators. That could be building administrators if you are housed in a building, if you are serving multiple buildings that might be working with other teams, other administrators to get more tools available at your disposal to train more people. I would select the weeks for a compressed version of whatever you're training. So if you've chosen to train weeks 1 through 5 to just start building capacity in your district, that would be a great thing to select for your new hires, but in a condensed version. So pick and choose within that window. And then identify a peer mentor who is in the same classroom or the same building who can help support that new staff member. Make a plan, work with admin to determine when they can be trained, when new staff can be trained, and how that falls within their hourly commitment. Often that has come up as a barrier. And maintaining that record of the content you are going over with other professionals in the district may be very informative. So as far as mentorship, SLPs and related service providers may not be the best option depending on whether they're in that building full-time or not to support that staff. Oh, I'm so sorry. So picking that mentor that they don't necessarily have to have certain credentials. They just have to have that skill set and be available to help champion that person who's learning this a really hard skill of language facilitation with this symbolic tool. But that mentor piece really will benefit. And then couple the trainings and the mentorship with periodically supporting them in the environment they're working in. Instead of pulling them out of the classroom to talk about how to do those skills and facilitate that communication with those students, you're going to get more buy-in pushing in. So, yeah. And then moving forward, consider the challenges a school team is facing. Identify those immediate and long-term needs and set a goal. And then identify parts of a plan. And please have them create or help create an implementation plan for their students. Those are just examples. Like I've said before, this tool is totally accessible. You can pick and choose whatever pieces best help you in what you are trying to help support your teams, your parents, your other professionals with. So there are no rules. But if someone's new to AAC, here's some good options of videos that may help and topics for families and possibly professional staff who have started to use AAC but who have run into barriers, maybe had some misinformation, but have abandoned it. That middle column is a great option of videos and content to possibly explore for that. And then for those who do have that foundation, Expanding AAC has some other maybe more in-depth places to start. So this is in your handout. I hope this helps guide you because there is a lot of information. And I'm going to just go to this slide here. So that's stepping into AAC in an hour. It's a lot of information. Do you guys have any questions, any thoughts? Yes. No, it's okay.
So I balance what I have multiple jobs.
Okay. Okay.
The time frame is where I have trouble with. Does this take a full-time specialist that is under the team lead to do this, or does it take a big team to all this?
That's a great question. Okay, I don't know if Zoom could hear that question, but the question is this such a big job to utilize this tool that it's like a full-time professional dedicated or a full team? Did I portray that right? Okay. No, I have SLPs at schools who will go, I'm just using this one handout because this teacher needs this support. This is a free resource that can be used in any form. You really can pick and choose. I'm not sure I'm answering your question, but you don't need to be an AT specialist. You don't need to be a speech language pathologist. Families can use these videos and the handouts as a way to advocate with their school teams if they're struggling. So it really is, they're free and accessible, and please use them to help others around us gain knowledge and support our AAC learners. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm just wondering, from your experience, personal experience, what specifically getting buy-in from teachers and school staff and paras, and what have you seen the most successful way to get that attachment? Because I'm just thinking about how difficult I feel like it would be to get that step of actual teachers and aides to be.
That's a great question. For Zoom, the question is, what parts of this project can be used possibly to help get buy-in?
Yeah, what have you seen?
What have I seen that works?
The most successful.
Okay. The most successful, what I have seen, because I was in a special school. So I think we had about 80% of our students using some sort of speech generating device. And so we coupled pushing into the classrooms and modeling with them I would clip the videos with either a parent interview or like a specific skill set to go, hey, here's why. And so they have a video, and they're not just hearing it from me. At that point, I was a speech language pathologist with a caseload. And I think the parent interviews were one of the most impactful pieces, because on the videos, they talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of AAC. And they also provide that personal experience and that long-term experience. I think for some of those interviews, one parent had a 22-year-old. She discusses, we started with like a grid of 4, and then a grid of 12, and then a grid of, and she just kept going. And she's like, and it was just so frustrating to learn that over and over. So I played that clip for someone who was not, who was struggling with why we were starting on such a grid size that was so large and with smaller targets, and why we would choose a key guard over removing access to words on that front page. And that helped so much. So I like to start with the teacher and the paraprofessional because that's where they're engaging with the students so much that's where they see the benefits and see that expressive language come out before it goes throughout the building. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Mm-hmm. So the question for Zoom is, are the videos generic enough? They're not device or language system specific. Are they not language specific, language system specific, where it would help staff know how to model and learn these skills without being associated with a specific system, right? Okay. Yes, we model those language walkthroughs, use a variety of different systems. The main videos that teach the skills, they talk so much about the why and what to model, but because we used an animation system called Beyond, it's not like they have animation for assistive wear or PRC Saltillo. So it looks like some iPad, and then we're talking about the skill of what we're modeling and how we're modeling it, what emphasis, what words are you modeling on the device, but it's very device agnostic. Does that? Yeah.
Somebody in chat asked where to find the handouts. They're in the YouTube chat.
Okay, so the YouTube channel just has the videos. If you scan these codes, they will take you to the websites where they have the print materials as well. Let's see. Huh. Okay.
Yeah, the right one just takes me, it says stepinaac.org, but it just takes me to
Okay. All right. Let me go back and see if we have another QR code. Yeah, so I recommend going to practicalaac.org, and there's headings. One says home. There is a heading up in that, and I believe it's blue, that blue bar that says stepping into AAC. You can click on that and that will open up all the materials. We do not have a tech team helping us, so we rely on you guys telling us that something's not working so we can fix it. This one goes to Practical AAC? Okay. Okay, so for all the materials, scan this code. Yeah, I'm catching up too. and then YouTube, and then you can type in these websites. Oh, it looks like we need to make our slide a little more clear. Any other questions?
Do you do this full time? Like, how do you I'm an OT, so
Yeah.
I'm interested in getting more in AAC, but I'm also interested in, I've already dabbled with and interested in creating content for fine motor skills or different things that I work on with kids. But it's like, how do I manage a caseload as well as do this? It's just very slow. So how did you, it's a full-time thing, where's funding and all that?
How did I get involved in stepping into AAC, and how do I manage this time-wise? Okay, I was a filmmaker before I was a speech language pathologist, so I had a lot of editing experience. And I started editing a podcast that then got me hooked over to Rachel and Carol and Tabby, who needed some support with the video. I wouldn't say I did it full time. It was a side project that I did at the same time as working full time as an SLP. And I was still finishing up my grad program for the beginning of it. So, yeah. It's been an adventure. Mhm. Yes. So the question is, are we using this as a tool so that the whole district can use it and use it to support their teams? Yes. We currently do a stipend class for our teachers, and this year we're talking a lot about communication. So we have been pulling a lot of materials from this project, but our SLPs, some of them are aware, and next year with our PDs, we're going to do a PD just on this resource so that they can use that exactly as you were talking about to help support their teams without having to put the time into creating the materials and making it much more accessible to build that capacity district-wide. Any other questions, thoughts? Okay. Hey guys, thank you so much for your time. Really, use it as much as you can, however you can, and please feel free to provide feedback. We would greatly like to make it much more accessible.